Hey friends, welcome back. This is Steve Willis once again. Today we are looking at ACCA paper performance management. We will do a difficult make or buy question together. That's question robber. It's in all of your revision kits, question banks. It's also on the practice platform in the extra questions section. So before you watch the rest of this video, try this one at home in the spreadsheet tool in the practice platform. Then let's compare your work with mine. All right, let's get started. The first step is to create a nice clean template or pro forma, and we'll use the standard approach. We will use our column headings for our products or components in this case, and we will use the rows for the cost items that we find in the scenario. Now, I want to stress that this first step, all we're doing is reproducing everything that we find in the scenario, in that original costing, and just in the notes. We're not trying to do any math or solve any problems at this point. We're just creating a clean, easy to navigate starting place. This is called a pro forma or a template. Okay, so we're almost at the first step here. We've reproduced everything that we found. Notice I'm double spacing. This will help the marker, and it will also help me. If I make a mistake, I can go in and very easily insert something new. Okay, now let's get to the decision-making aspect of this question. We're going to have to get that total, that's for 80,000 units, down to a cost level or unit level. Okay, so for each product, we'll get the unit level cost, compare it to the outsource cost, and get the difference. Then we can get the easiest mark in the story, in the question, answering the question, advising if we should make the components in-house or outsource. You guys, so first step, as you see here, is to create a template or pro forma. Let's continue now, following the rule of easy marks first. Okay, we're not going to take this question from top to bottom. We're going to identify the shortest paragraphs in the notes, and we'll start there. So let's start with labor. If you see, they say labor is 100% variable, so we can just plug those numbers into our spreadsheet and get our first mark or half mark. Remember, easy marks first. Next thing we can do, come down here to the depreciation and insurance. Okay, and here all we need to do is remove the general overhead portion of this cost, which is 60% of the cost listed in the scenario. So we're just multiplying that original number by 0.4 or 40%. Now we have the product-specific depreciation and insurance costs. We've scooped more easy marks. Let's move on and go to the next hurdle. Let's tackle the material costs. And here we're dealing with some inflation. And the scenario tells us that the keypads don't begin inflation until halfway into the year. So we'll only inflate half of the activity level. 160 divided by 2, everybody, is 80, as you know. And for the screens, inflation begins immediately, so we will inflate 100% of the activity level there, okay, by 2%. Using the power of the spreadsheet, using the functions and the operators to do the work for us. Alrighty, at this point, we've cleared the easy marks. Let's move to the medium marks. And they tell us in the scenario that the heat and the power include a general apportionment of overheads based on labor. So we need to get that out of that cost so we can only deal with product-specific costs. I'm going to use the relative addressing so that I can now copy and paste this equation directly into the screens column. And I won't have to do much work except changing out that total cost for that item. Okay, Remember, keep your spreadsheet equations simple. The more complicated you make your equations, the more likely they are to contain an error. So we're making great progress. We've cleared the easy and the medium marks. Now, we might be running out of time about now. So before we get to tackling the machine costs, let's finish our decision-making activity, because there will be easier marks below it answering that question and giving the user of this document the advice. Let's now move to the bottom part of our spreadsheet, and we can now total up those costs for 80,000 units using the sum function. Okay, this is about the only function in constructed response workspace that you'll need. And if we use relative cell addresses, we can just copy, paste that equation into the screens column, saving us a ton of time. Now that we have the total for 80,000 units, we can divide that total by 80,000 to get to the unit level. Again, we're using basic spreadsheet operators, just dividing and relative cell addresses, copy pasting that equation to save time. Now, let's just plug in the outsource cost that was given directly to us in the scenario into both columns. Using the spreadsheet, we can then get the difference. You guys, at this point, we see that the in-house cost per unit is lower than the outsource cost, so we could go ahead and answer that question. Therefore, Robert should manufacture both components in-house. Now, remember, own figure rule. Okay, if you have a mistake in your answer or you leave something blank because you're out of time, okay, the markers will not punish you twice for a mistake. So these totals, even though they're not correct, you will get full marks for everything that you have done to this point. Now we need to deal with this complicated, the most difficult part of the question, the machine costs. Okay, so we're going to use the workings approach. We're going to label our workings. Remember, there's a human being, a marker at the other end of this document, and they need to follow along with what you're doing. Okay, so we're going to use that working in a moment to show the marker, okay, what we are doing on the side. So the fixed costs are given to us directly, so all we have to do is plug those numbers in, okay? So the total cost minus that fixed component would give us the variable cost. Stepping back for a second, let's just see where we are. We've got everything done. We've got the cost per unit all set up with relative cell addressing with a function. Now, if we had run out of time now, we're fine. We've got more than enough marks to pass. Own figure rule will be in full effect. My statement will get full credit. But let's make it perfect. Let's do the last part together. Let us now do the machine variable cost. And as I mentioned before, we're going to use a working. It's too much to pack into one cell. So I'm just going to come over here to the left, to the right a little bit, and I can make W1, symbol for working. We can show the marker what we're doing, tell the marker what we're doing. We're doing the change in setups here. We need to calculate the change in setups, and that will drive the change in the variable costs. So that is linked to the number of batches, and we can find the current number of batches. Then we can get the new number of batches and the change, one over the other. So we are currently producing 80,000 units a year. We produce in quantities of 500. Then we stop what we're doing, we clean up, we calibrate the tools, maybe sharpen the blades, clean out any paint lines, whatever is happening in the factory per setup. And the new number of batches we're going to produce in smaller quantities. So that's going to be, we'll just copy, paste. It's the same formula, but we will produce in batches of 400. So that means we will have more setups. How many more setups? Well, we'll put one over the other. And that's 25% increase. So that's the working we need. Now I can come back here. Machine variable costs, that's equal to the 26,000 total minus the fixed cost multiplied by the 1.25. You can use the cell address there just as easily. I put the 125 in here for this demo. Let's do it this time. That'll be equal to 30 minus 6. And we can just grab the H12 there. That's H12. And friends, we've now completed our spreadsheet. We're giving the marker a beautiful, well-presented, easy to follow spreadsheet document that will earn you full marks. We're following great exam technique, making a template first, breaking our work down into steps. We're not putting a great emphasis on formatting because there are no marks for formatting. We're getting the work done in an organized, orderly fashion, and then moving on to more things in the exam. Friends, there you have it. I hope you found this useful. If you did, feel free to subscribe and throw down a like. This is Steve, signing out.